So we're going to use what we did in the last lesson or note sheet about finding exact trig values to now multiply trig ratios. So we're going to start with the same pieces of information, which is the trig chart. So always helpful to write it out, partially because it helps you remember things. And if you learn differently, so for those of you who may be visual learners, seeing it written out, even if it's in your own handwriting, is a good thing. For those of you who are auditory learners, this might sound a little bit weird, but say it to yourself as you're writing it out. And those of you who learn by doing, well, you're doing it. So that helps on many levels. Now, of course, I'm going to double check my work here because my ability to talk and write is a little shaky sometimes. So let's see, all the denominators for the first two lines are 2's, 1, 2, 3, 3, 2, 1, root 3 over 3, 1, and root 3. Okay, so that part's good. Now, of course, I always take a second and I fill in the ASTC part, ASTC. And this is my own added part. Oops, as I make mistakes then. But it's my own added piece of information just because if I've got values that are on the unit circle in terms of on the X or Y coordinate plane, on the axes, it just helps me remember that. So this is 0 and 2 pi. This is pi over 2. This is pi, 3 pi over 2. Okay, so we're going to use this information and then go through 1 through 4. So first thing I want to do is figure out the tangent of 2 pi over 3. So first thing I know is 2 pi over 3, I'll put this off to the side here, is in quadrant number 2. The reference angle would be pi over 3. So tangent of pi over 3 is root 3. However, in quadrant 2, tangent is negative. Separately, I'm going to figure out sine of 11 pi over 6. So 11 pi over 6 is almost 12 pi over 6. 12 pi over 6 would be 2 pi. So we're almost a full revolution, but not quite. And pi over 6 would be my reference angle. So sine of pi over 6 is 1/2. This is going to be 1/2. And in quadrant number 4, sine is negative. Now, what am I going to do with these two numbers? I'm going to multiply them together. But I want to be careful, and it says write your final answer as fraction. I know I've got a negative times a negative, and really this is root 3 over 1. So this is going to turn into root 3 over 2, and it's a positive root 3 over 2 because the double negatives. So that is the exact value of that expression. And that's how I break it down into using the trig chart and the ASTC information to figure this out. All right, rolling right along. Let's see, tangent of negative 225. So first thing I want to do is find negative 225. I want to find its coterminal angle, which is 135. Now, if you want to make yourself a note here and say, well, this is tangent of 135, go for it. So tangent of 135 is going to be in Q2, and it is, I believe, 45 degrees away from the x-axis. So 180 minus 135 is 45. So that's going to use tangent of the 45 degree angle is 1, but in quadrant 2, it's negative. So this is going to be negative 1. Separately, let's do the sine of 450. So 450 minus 360 is 90 degrees. So sine of 90, well, 90 is my pi over 2 here. It's 90 degrees off the x-axis. Remember that sine is the y value of your coordinate. So that's going to be 1. So negative 1 times 1 is negative 1. Now, you do need to show me your work so I can see exactly what you're doing here, okay? All right, so let's see. Cotangent of pi over 3. All right, so off to the side here, cotangent, well, pi over 3, no, I'm saying it wrong. It's cotangent of 3 pi over 2. I know where it is on the unit circle. I just clearly can't say that. So that's going to be right here. And cotangent would be cosine divided by sine. So let me slide up here. So if I do cosine divided by sine, that's going to be 0 divided by -1. Well, that's just going to be 0. So that's going to be 0. Now, honestly, I know that multiplying by 0 isn't really going to have an impact on this because it's going to be 0. But show me the steps here that you know how to find the cosecant of -120. All right. So let's see. -120, if I add 360, that gives me 240. So cosecant of 240 degrees. So 240 degrees is in quadrant number 3. It's between 180 and 270. And let's see, if I do that, that's going to give me a reference angle of 60 degrees. So cosecant is the reciprocal to sine. So I want the sine of 60, which is 3 pi over 2. So 3 pi over 2. So 0 times 3 pi over 2 is 0, which again, I know that's going to happen if you're dealing with a 0, but make sure I can see both pieces because I will be looking for both of them. All right, last but not least, we've got the secant of negative pi over 6 times the cosine of 240 degrees. So let's start with secant of negative pi over 6. Well, that would be the secant of 11 pi over 6. And that is right here in quadrant 4. So let's see, secant, and your referencing would be pi over 6. So secant's the reciprocal to cosine. So let's see, cosine of pi over 6 is root 3 over 2. Root 3 over 2. Let's see, that's going to be ASTC. That's positive in quadrant 4. Separately, let's find the cosine of 240. So 240 is in quadrant 3. It is 60 degrees away. We just talked about that one in problem number 3 here. That's why I'm doing it fast. Let's see, cosine of 60 degrees is, cosine 60 is 1/2. All right. However, cosine in quadrant 3 is negative. So this is going to turn into negative root 3 over 4. All right, so that's the end of this lesson. Let